Well, we are back with more questions, and these are not as long as the questions from yesterday. So, Brian White, thank you for being back, and thank you for contemplating these questions. By the way, I do want to say that the questions are designed as part of a thing that we're doing, where we've now accumulated, I think, something like 75 questions, maybe more than that, maybe 85 questions already. All, I mean, very different, very in all kinds of shapes. I don't know if you saw the CERN Basher 25 that he accumulated from the crowd.
Wow.
Yes, and so that was fabulous. And anyway, so what we're trying to do is come up and really get better at the design of the questions, which these my designs are not very good because you would never have time to ask these super long questions, but I'm just trying to set them up for the purposes of the show. But the questions themselves, I think, would still be some of those questions might be possible. Anyway, so that's the goal. And you were first. You were the Guyana pig, and
Mm.
you did a great job last Tuesday, so, whatever day that was. So let's jump in. Unless you have a thought before we jump in.
No, these are difficult and they really are probative. So I think it adds a new level of value that I'm not seeing elsewhere. But don't let it get to your head.
Somebody said years ago something about not being able to fit through a door. I don't know what they meant.
You'll figure it out when you're older.
That was a that yeah, okay. Number question number 6. Tesla currently owns the largest neural net training computer in the world, which will continue to grow through Dojo chips and chips from outside suppliers. You have indicated that at some point this might provide revenue for Tesla through others using the computer to train their AI requirements. Here's the question. Would you be able to provide any kind of additional color to that in terms of the product that you envision that would be doing this and the timing when this might happen?
So there's two parts to that. There's the in-house, we will let you borrow our farm, and there's the I will sell you the tractor. So for the I will sell you the tractor, I don't see a reason why Tesla wouldn't make their Dojo chips available for sale. They
Wow.
have to pay to have them made. When they when you turn on the machine, there's a fixed cost to that, to designing, building, and firing up the line. The marginal cost is much lower. So if you can get, instead of the first benefit is, instead of paying NVIDIA 80% margins, 150% margins for these cutting edge chips, we're skipping that part and just having our own chips made. But the second part is we can then turn around and sell them. We can undercut NVIDIA by 10%, 50%, and still make huge margins on them, astronomical margins. The competitors aren't going to be held back by a lack of chips. They're just going to pay someone different. Uh, and by making more chips more readily available that are more affordable, it expands for everyone. It's in the same way SpaceX gives launch services to their direct competitors. I think Dojo could do the same. You're going to buy the compute, you're going to get it done. I might as well be the one getting paid for that. In terms of the server farm itself, well, they'll have to have idle capacity first. When will that be? When FSD is solved, it's not solved, it's just the minimum viable product. We'd like another 9, and then another 9, and another 9. And how much do you dedicate to that versus allowing others to process on your network? And so, in terms of timeline for um, Dojo as a service, I think that would come after Dojo as a physical product. I think the only thing holding them back from selling Dojo as a product is the lack of uh, user documentation that would allow those developers to write efficient code on which to run it.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. So, number 7, arguably, Tesla has by far the best inference chip in the world for embodied AI. This is the chip that goes in the car that will go in Optimus. So, We have about 6 million of those in cars already, with at least 2 million a year for the cars, and who knows how many more for the robots. And this combination of things, having that wonderful inference chip and then also having a massive employment, provides these three questions. Number one, would you sell these inference chips to others just as a product, like other robot or car companies? Number two, let me do all three. When might you start selling time on the array of all of them to others? And number three, who are the most obvious kinds of customers that might buy either the chips or time on the array?
So I think I inadvertently answered this as part of the previous question, which is to say, but the part that we haven't addressed is who. And just like with any emerging technology, say, well, who needs, I mean, do we sell it to people trying to train cars? Great, let's do that. There's 50 of those, 100 of those. They're all going out doing their own thing. But once the first handful of players emerge, it makes it less reasonable for everyone to try and do it themselves. So not that. And well, then we're out of customers. Who else even needs AI? Well, the answer is everyone. They just may not realize it yet. They're every factory, anything that employs a process or a procedure or a product. I saw this video 10 years ago where they needed to make a divider between first class and the main cabin. And normally they would purchase this divider, and it's, a 100-pound, 200-pound thing, and it's clunky and all that. And they said, well, if we could make one that's lighter, we have to pay for the fuel to move this barrier every single time we fly, 5 times a day for the next 10 years, 20 years. Let's make one lighter. So they set this AI program to design something that had as much structural strength, but was lighter. And what they came up with looked like, I don't know, an alien spider web, but it was 40% lighter, 60% lighter. And yes, it costs twice as much, 3 times as much to manufacture, but it doesn't matter because it saves it back in fuel within the first matter of months, let alone years, let alone decades. So who can benefit from this? Absolutely everyone. Every part that's made in your car could benefit from an AI redesign if it works. And the if it works isn't up to Tesla or Dojo. It's up to whoever it is that's employing the AI. So who's going to buy it? Everyone. Well, if we were looking at cell phones 20, 30, 40 years ago, we would say, who actually needs them? Just a handful of businessmen. Really? Because a lot of people have 2 or 3 and no business. So So the answer is everyone.
Everyone. Okay.
Everyone. And in terms of timeline, as soon as it's a minimum viable product at a price the market will bear, which could be within 2 years.
Which seemed to me, this is one of the shocking things that I've had real trouble trying to figure out, is it would seem to me you've got 100 robot companies now. You would think that some of those robot companies would be coming to Tesla and talking about inference chips. And or you might think the opposite. Tesla would have a sales staff of somebody reaching out to the robot companies as they come on stream and saying, hey, would you be interested in taking a look at our inference chip?
And that is a conversation that very well may be happening behind the scenes that we just don't know about. It would be, I think, not very difficult for Tesla to set up a small team of, we'll call them sales, gurus who are actually engineers, who actually understand the product, who actually could go out and talk to them and start setting up those kinds of early relationships. I just don't know if it's a priority for Tesla right now.
Right. I can understand that. Number 8 out of 10. You are within months of starting production on the Lithium Refinery in Corpus Christi. This plant was inspired by a need to ensure supply, possibly also to have a secure supply outside of China to lower cost. And we've heard that there are some breakthroughs with impacts yet to be described in detail. So the questions are 3 again. When do you plan to reveal on the results of the project? B, As of now, is it meeting or exceeding expectations? And C, can you give us some teasers as to what's so amazing about the processes that you've invented?
So on the setup was magical and the questions are impossible. When are they going to reveal the results? You and I don't know that. I would like to know that too, but it is not as critical as it was. Is it meeting or exceeding expectations? It's not running yet. So I don't think there is an answer to that. And the amazing process I'm very curious about, but that is definitely a secret sauce question that we won't know because it could give them a 2 to 5 year advantage over the competitors. So the question is, why did they want to make their own lithium refinery? Why would they want to do it themselves? This is a commodity business. Tesla only gets into a business if they believe that they can disrupt it. So I've seen people say, why don't they get into nuclear? They could do it better. Well, because they could probably only do it 3 to 5% better, if that. Nuclear is a very mature technology. It's physics based. But if Tesla had somehow come up with a way to bypass the steam portion of the process and go straight from nuclear to electricity, they would get into it immediately because that's disruptive. That skips a whole lot of steps, a whole lot of moving parts. So can they disrupt? The second reason they would build their own lithium refinery is because the IRA requires domestic mineral sourcing. And if you can buy lithium, you can just buy it on the open market. At the time they started this, lithium prices were going to the moon and they weren't slowing down. Well, lithium prices have crashed, which means the ginormous financial incentive they had to do this has largely gone away. The remaining benefit, the biggest chunk of the remaining benefit, is the domestic sourcing requirements for EV batteries. And depending who wins the election, that could be going away as well. And at that point, I'm not sure that they would even operate their own lithium refinery unless that secret sauce is genuinely revolutionary and can do something that's vastly cheaper, vastly better. And until we know what that is, we can't make a prediction on that. So a lot of the elements that a lot of the factors that were at play that push them to build their own lithium refinery have either gone away or will or could very well go away in coming months. And that would mean a huge pile of wasted money, a huge pile of disappointed prospective employees, but we shall see.
There was one more reason, which I alluded to in my setup, which is that they were worried that there would not be enough refining capacity. And this hasn't changed. So the thing that changed is that the domestic, especially US manufacturers, have cut back, and the European manufacturers of BEV, or potential manufacturers of BEVs, have cut back their plans, which cut back the demand, which cut back everything along the curve that we've seen described so beautifully again by Jordan �𝐚𝐳𝐝𝐲. Jordan was estimating at one point that there was no way, not even a possibility, of reaching the levels needed by 2028, 2027, 28 to supply the need. We, I think, continue to believe that will still at some point reaccelerate, where everybody else, whoever's left or whoever comes on board, will be back in the acceleration of the need, including Tesla, which had, a flat year this year, and next year expects to jump up by 50% again. So ultimately, I think the lithium refinery facility will be necessary just in terms of providing enough capacity worldwide to take care of the need.
Yes, I'm just not worried about it.
Yeah.
To meet the levels needed by 2030, we don't know what those levels are. And legacy manufacturers keep revising their projections in ways that do not give me confidence in their sincerity of transitioning away from fossil fuels.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they're all going heavy into hybrids,
Yeah,
that means you can build 10 hybrids, 8 hybrids for one EV. with the same amount of batteries, unless it's a GM, in which case you could build 20 hybrids with the battery that you put in a Hummer or a Silverado. I did get a chance to ride in a Hummer yesterday in a parking lot. We were having a conversation with a gentleman who was charging his Hummer at a supercharger. We were there in a Cybertruck. We had a conversation. He's like, just hop it, just grab it, just take the car. Honey, get out of the car. These people are going for a drive. So we went around the parking lot, left some surprising skid marks on a little launch, and had some fun.
Yeah, right.
But would I buy that truck? No.
Number 9, you recently teased that Lathrop and Shanghai megafactories might do a combined 30 gigawatt hours of production annually, which was a lot different than 10 plus 10, which is the assigned capacity, but you teased it might be 30 combined. Would this be due to smarter methods or just more capacity in general, or both?
So Lathrop is already running at full speed. I've seen people misunderstand the scope of Shanghai, saying, oh, but this news report says it's, 5 times, 10 times bigger than the one in Lathrop. No, that's the entire site. That's not the building. And then I had someone come back and say, no, the Lathrop building is expanding into the space next to it. So of course I called my guy at Lathrop and said, did you guys expand into the space next to you? And he said, what? No, we're next to an Amazon fulfillment center. We can't expand into their space. We have not increased our footprint. What they're getting is more efficient. This is a fairly simple design compared to a car. And if you want to increase throughput, you can just pre-build more of the components so that the line itself becomes less of an assembly line and more of a final assembly line. You can take those steps and move them back one more degree of separation there, so that instead of installing 100 modules, you install 425 modules. So that'd be, and when I do my quarterly numbers, and I'm very good at my quarterly numbers, one of the things I always assume is if the quarter looks the same as last quarter, then it's 2% higher, because they can always eke out a little more efficiency, and they always do. There is a limit to that. We just haven't found it yet.
Okay. Speaking of which, are you ready to announce your second quarter numbers?
No, I haven't finished crunching them. I've seen, yeah, well, I get back in town. By the time this runs, I'll be back in town. I have seen some, I understand that the consensus right now is a bit pessimistic, and I do not share that pessimism.
Good. That's good. All right.
I haven't seen anything that would lead me to believe it. Shanghai is running at full speed, and we know what happens when they do that. I've seen one indication of 1 week of slowdown in Fremont. That's within spec. Cybertruck is moving more units than ever before. In July, they sold more Cybertrucks than Hummer has sold ever in 1 month. And of course, and they go, well, yes, but it should be even bigger. It will be. Yeah. So, yeah.
My last of my 10 questions. California and Florida auto insurance premiums are going through the roof. I guess everybody's auto insurance premiums are going through the roof, but in California and Florida, it is really bad. Question A, any updates on getting the clearances in California to use the safety method that Tesla prefers for deciding the rates in California instead of the historical ticket and accident plus location data now required? And B, any update on Florida agreeing to Tesla insurance, period?
Boy, insurance, state insurance, what do they call those people? The attorney generals or whoever it is that approves the insurance on a state-by-state basis are famously slow, famously difficult. So in terms of Florida, there's no update. Florida, the Sunshine State, doesn't even let you gather sunshine. It's ridiculous. But it was great. I did see this very beautiful swamp with a sign that said, "Don't worry, there are no crocodiles in here." So that was good. Turns out it was just alligators. So, but yeah. So I mean, it was helpful. It was good information to have. if you're studying wildlife. California it was in the 70s, it was like Prop 103 or something, where they said, it was a state, it was a citizen voter initiative that said, you don't get to gather our driving data. You just don't. And there were unintended consequences, because when you write a law in the 70s that has to do with a technology that's not going to exist for 30 years, namely driving telematics, there would need to be a carve out for it, because this is written, this is the law, this is the will of the people, even if there was an unintended consequence behind it. So as a result, everybody pays as if they're in the highest risk area all the time. They don't want to be able to allow companies to redline drivers for where they live, or it's just very frustrating. And the notion that insurance rates are just going up, I have not found that to be true. I've done a couple of videos where I look at insurance rates by vehicle, by state, and I find that when I got my Tesla, I don't have any tickets. I don't have any accidents on my record. My last speeding ticket was probably 20 years ago, maybe. So there's, I should get the good rates.
Right.
Well, when I went from my Nissan Quest to my brand new fast Tesla, my insurance didn't go up all that much. I think I was paying $96 a month. And then when my 6-month renewal came, it dropped to like 92. I thought that was very surprising. But, it's a less valuable car than it was 6 months ago. So there you go. Insurance varies greatly, depending on where you are.
Sure.
But then even between carriers, if the rate seems high, shop around. And in some cases, you can even just call your own insurance company and say, do you want me to shop around? Because if I find a lower price, I'm never coming back. And they'll say, oh, look at this. I just found another discount you qualify for. But I believe in California, the rules are very strict about things like that. And that may not work.
I see. Holy cow. While we've been doing all this, it's probably unfair and unreasonable, but I did come up with another question.
Unfair, unreasonable.
This might not be it probably would be a good question to ask Elon, but I think it's a good question to ask you and for me to think about. And maybe Larry is kind of working on this too. When does a hybrid, at what point do hybrids become dumb? What is the dollar amount? How much less does an electric vehicle that has the same or better features, benefits, and specs, and it costs less, how much less does it have to be, or what does it have to do for people to just go, okay, that's it, done with hybrids?
I don't know. Because people are not always rational, but I would say that hybrids get such good gas mileage that they're hard to turn down. Really, all a hybrid does is turn your brakes into a little bit of a power plant. That's it. That's the whole gain in efficiency, unless you're also plugging it in at night, which I think a recent study found that most people do not. Because I don't need to. It's just an extra hassle. So at what point do hybrids not make sense? I think it would require outside pressure in terms of fuel, in terms of economy, in terms of efficiency, to push them out. So unless there is some kind of mandate or incentive that pushes them, they will never go away.
Okay.
And I know you love mandates and whatnot.
Not a big fan.
Not a big fan, and it's unfortunate because I keep inviting you to all the nice places and you say, Brian, no mandates.
No mandates. All right. With that,
I brought flowers.
With that bit of nonsense, but that's what you're famous for. I mean, you are the comedy relief, right?
I am known for it a bit.
Well, okay, Brian, thanks as always for coming on. we now have, I forget, 85, 75, a whole bunch of questions. I think we're going to get more this week, and then we'll put them all together. And then I was going to ask Grok, say, okay, Grok, here's all the questions we've already got, and throw them into the Grok pile, and then say, Grok, give me 10 more.
If you really want it to stew, you'd have to put it in the Grok pot.
The Grok pot. It's been great talking to you.